Say less, bro. Say less. She'll be the first to hear it. Don't worry.
Yeah, for sure, man. For
Right,
sure.
you want to kick us off with an intro?
Let's make it happen.
Let's go.
So firstly, welcome everybody to Panoramic Perspectives with Ribhav and Rohan.
That's the name.
We have a very, very special guest today. He's been a friend of mine for 15 years, one of my inspirations. And let's just go through a bit of what this man's done. He's a football player, but the story is interesting. He played at the under 13 level in Haryana. He played at the under 17 level for Delhi. He got selected for one of the most prestigious programs at FC Metz, which is a first division club in France. He has gone and trained at DFI, a German academy. He has played in French clubs, German clubs, and Australian clubs in his career. He is also the first Indian ever to sign for a third division club in Austria, which is absolutely phenomenal. And he is also the CEO of Eric Binney Sports Management, which helps nourish and nurture talent across India. So, unbelievable little flow of things that he's done. He's also a phenomenal singer, and we have him on our podcast today. So, we're just so happy to have you here. And I need to dive straight into it, Vedant. How do you have such a well shaped butt?
I don't know, man. I really don't know. I think it's like one of those things with football players. It just ends up happening like without even, and you take it for granted. I'm not even joking. Lower body, you just take for granted that okay, yeah. And then the moment that I start speaking to a few other people that are hitting the gym more often and probably working harder in the gym than I am, it's like a big sticking point of legs because for me, since the time that I even got into the gym, for me, I only knew lower body like training. It never dawned upon me really initially to, be working upper body and things like that. So the butt is a little hard work. It's more just work on the pitch, I would say. But thanks anyway.
I need to dabble on this just for another second. Like,
Sure.
you know how good your butt is, or do you get told, or how does it work, like in the dressing rooms and stuff?
I think so. Yeah. So, Ribhav, I think Rohan is teasing me towards the direction of a story. So I remember when I went so I didn't think. I mean, this is obviously a footballer thing. I mean, most guys end up having a pretty well-developed lower body just because of the fact that like you're obviously training so much. But yeah, I mean, even for like Germany, I was surprised here and there whenever I joined, and I end up joining a few clubs every season. I end up moving to a new club, whether I like that or not. It's not an intentional decision. And yeah, just last year also, and over here, it's not a big deal for most of these guys. They shower completely naked. It's not like obviously what we have back home. They're just completely open showers. And I just remember like, and we're like not even we don't know each other that well. I'm talking about like maybe like 3 sessions in. I just remember like very strange icebreaker where this guy was just like. In Germany, he was like, dude, like you got a fine ass, and I was like, thank you, man. In the shower, I felt little, I was like, okay, that's some way of breaking the ice, but yeah, I guess that was their way of integrating me into the club, so
One way to
as
start
long as
getting
it
to know each
works.
other. That's fantastic. I see some guitars in your background, and I know you love to sing. You also play the guitar?
Yeah, yeah, so no, yeah, kind of. So I used to play the drums a lot when I was
Mm-hmm.
in school. Music is and always has been a really like big thing in our family, so um, I through that always had a bit of an ear like for and if you sing then you get you develop that ear for just like being able to figure out what scales and what singing. And then since drums was such a big part of me, and with the guitar people have the way that I see it is that you either need to have a ear for understanding notes, and two, you need to have the rhythm to make sure that you're strumming right. And I always I was always a very emotional guy. I always liked to listen to very like melodic music, and I always wondered like I was like, I really need to get into a note-based instrument.
Yeah.
So I picked up the most generic note-based instrument there is, which was the guitar. And I wouldn't say that I can like play it, in a really good level or anything like that, but it's like it's the kind of thing that it's I'm someone that likes to learn not by being taught it, but it's just being there and like, trial and error. And so yeah, I've learned a little bit of how to play it, but I don't go beyond the usual chords that would be there. After my plucking and all that, so I've reached like a plateau and I just stay there, ting ting ting, very happy. That's all it is.
So you said note-based instrument versus what non-note-based instrument? I would assume you mean something like the drums. That's a non-note-based instrument, or
Yeah.
okay.
I mean, like most of percussions, because i I think like overall it ends up being pretty similar. Obviously, you have different tones and different like textures of the sound that you're creating. But like basically, if you look at South America, also a lot of the Congos, African, percussion stuff like that, it's similar. Like it is all basically beat based. But let's say if you sing, it's very difficult to listen to someone singing while they are playing a congo, or while they're playing the tabla, or while they're playing the drums, right? Like it's not something that's melodic to listen to, but you can listen to somebody singing on a guitar or on a piano, or yeah, those would be the two most generic and strongest ones. But I definitely wanted to get into that. Or a violin, like for example, my mom used to play the violin for the longest time. I've never heard her play it, unfortunately, but um, yeah, so there was just a tendency after a while that I was like, okay, I wanna also because I was at the academy, and the drum set is obviously not, the smallest thing in the world to have to take around. So I used to have like this pad. I don't know if you guys have seen it. Rohan, you
I
may have
think I know
seen
what you mean.
something like that, like with Nikhil. Like I mean, Shreddigan uses like something like that he uses to
Mm.
mix as well. But there used to be like this Octopad that I had bought once, and I was using that for a while. But I don't know, man. It just felt too like after you played on the real thing, it felt too synthetic. And then after a while, you need the real thing, and then I kind of just pivoted onto that. So it's cool, it's fun. Like it's one of my bucket list things to learn how to play the piano as well. So but it's that I feel like that kind of instrument, like it needs a lot of time. So I think I probably will get into that once I'm done with my footballing career. But there's still some time for that, I guess.
There's a lot of time for that. I hope your career goes on for a
Yeah.
long time. But just
Yeah.
staying on the music topic just a little more. So since you have the whole background of music, especially in your family, like a lineage
Mm-hmm.
of music, I guess you could say, what
Mm-hmm.
role does music play in your life? Is it something that just helps you relax? Do you just enjoy it? Does it take, like, is it an emotional thing? Is it because of the environment you grew up in because your whole family was always into it? What role does
Mm-hmm.
it play for you?
Um, I mean, I think definitely a really big role. In fact, I would say that away from football, I would say that's probably the thing that I'm most passionate about. Um, Initially it used to be like most families, it's like beta gana chahiye, nachna chahiye, you should do something like that. So it was like, initially it always started with that, but somehow because the fact that mom and dad sang and sang quite well, and it was always something that was very appreciated. Like for example, um I don't know why, but I never had really a keen ear so much for like even when I listen to music today, it's very Sufi music. It's a lot of when you're talking about mainstream names, it's more Rahat Fateh Ali Khan that you listen to rather than what a mainstream Bollywood song would maybe typically sound like. Just more soulful music, and my mom's brother was a professional drummer as well. And I think there's just somehow seemed to be a deep appreciation for it, and through that, like through seeing my parents have that, it always struck a chord for us as well. Also as a family, we've always been a very emotionally attuned family. And I think a lot of our emotion was very easily like, um, explained and felt through music. It would also be a thing, it would be a trigger for a lot of emotion to come out, through just crying and speaking about it, and just sharing that passion for music. And so that has always been that way, and it's always been a connector for us. Um, you know, like most functions, weddings, we were always the brothers that sang. Baba was always the person that was asked to sing. Um, and I was always a little like I kind of pushed it away when I was younger. So it's something that I regret that like my mom also kind of put me onto South Indian classical music at a point when I was a lot younger. Obviously at the time, I don't know, I used to come back from school and I wanted to just chill. I thought there were a lot more fun things to do than be on a harmonium and, have those classes for an hour and a half. But I regret it a lot, man. And I think that it gave me a musical base that I don't really quite appreciate, but luckily have to some degree now. Again, we're not talking about any professional, level of singing, but yeah, I would say that I have a bit of an understanding for it and can pick up songs pretty easily. And through that, that's why like even instruments I feel like come a little easier for me just because of the fact that I'm able to just listen to a song and try to like pick up on that. I'm not really somebody that will need to be told, okay, I still don't know if you ask me to play something on the guitar, I don't know what chord that is. Like I don't know any theory of it, but I just know what I hear and then I go by it. And yeah, I mean, music definitely ends up being even here for me a huge pillar, a huge support, something I'm really passionate about. When I do get time off to see like my favorite artist is really something that I view as being really therapeutic for me, though that word really is kind of overused, but I would say that if I had to think of like a really like strong trait that gave me a lot of like happiness, and it's funny, I was talking to, Yuli about this as well. I would definitely say music is that.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah, yeah,
So we can
plays a
expect an
big
album to
part.
drop once you're done with your football career.
I don't think so, but
Ah, looking
I
forward to
listen to a lot of albums, I
that.
guess, yeah.
You mentioned some things you regret and not spending more time with music and learning music when you were younger. Um,
Mm,
I want to ask you about regrets when it comes to the decisions you've made in your career. Have there been
mhm,
times when you've been playing football when things weren't working out and you felt like maybe you made the wrong decision?
mhm.
How did you deal with that? Did that happen? What's the mentality that helped you get through it?
Uh, Regrets is always a hard one, man. I really think like with the footballing career, I really, I promise, like I don't really have things that I regret. Like it's weird. I mean, again, I'm not trying to just say to for it to sound like a thing that no, I have no regrets and stuff, but um, it's like a circumstance just presented itself one step after the other, and sometimes they align for you, and sometimes they don't. Um, I think that I've been on the receiving end positively as well as negatively. And I think all in all, just as a basic overarching thing, the moment especially you view it as a career and you're kind of in it for a while, you have, I mean, I'm 27 now, so started playing when I was, I mean, in Europe when I was 18 is when you get into men's football. So about 9 years in, I would say that you have definite highs and you have definite lows. Um, but the encouraging thing about the low is knowing that you will have a high. And the same way that when you're on the high, then you're like, okay, great, I'm enjoying it. Um, when is shit gonna hit the fan? You know what I mean? Like, but you are mentally there already to know that, okay, it's gonna come so that you're ready for the time when it does come. Then you just know that you fall back to your basics and you're fine and you're good to go. But I wouldn't really say that I have anything that are regrets per se. Of course, you have times that are disappointing. You have times that you think that you could have presented yourself better. You think that if you had taken this chance a little bit more, then who knows what could have happened. Um, but I really think that you will always feel like you could have done more in XYZ situation. And so That way, I wouldn't really say that there's a um, regret that I would look at. Um, One thing that may be of interest, I don't know. So a lot of people, for example, had always asked me how come I had taken this route, like going to Europe rather than being in India. Even now, people, kind of just say that, why don't you come back to India? And we can like dive into that also a little bit more in detail, maybe because there's a lot to like deep dive into that. Um, I think there are different pathways that you can take in your footballing journey. Some people hop from one destination to the other, which I respect and can understand. Some people have and can see right in front of them an opportunity that they can kind of take and grasp, and that's why they feel a little bit more tempted to kind of go down that path. For me, it was that I was I don't think that I saw it from that point of view, but now when I think about it, so basically this opportunity to come to Europe presented itself when I was about 15 or 16, something like 15, I think, yeah. Um, and at the time, like I had mentioned earlier, so I was playing in India, I was playing in general circuits. I played, with Haryana when I was 11. Then I realized, okay, I want to take this seriously and professionally. I always had that appetite to do more and I don't know that extra thing, and without trying to romanticize this, but yeah, I always had this excitement about the fact that if I thought about when we had school training on Monday and Wednesday, then I used to feel excited about the fact that if I'm training on Tuesday and Thursday, I used to think, okay, I'm training more than everybody else is training. So it was just something that I always enjoyed, and it gave me something that motivated me. There was something about that. Um, so I knew that I had an appetite for it. Then I went to nationals because obviously you play in school. Okay, you're playing in, like, obviously you're the star in school and everything is this thing. But I knew pretty quickly, because of the fact that you ended up playing districts and nationals, that there's more to school football. Um, and then at nationals, when I was in class, when I was 11, that's when I realized, okay, there is obviously the whole country that you're going to be competing against if you want to be, playing professionally and you want to do well. And that's when I would say, okay, 11 was a turning point in my mentality to say, okay, this is something I want to do professionally. And that's where my parents, I think, also saw that change in me. Then you went on. I went to this tournament in Holland called Youth Friendship Games. In retrospect, the experience was actually not the best, because now that I'm in this industry, I know what they had done, and that's a whole thing in itself, which I'll explain to you also later. But it was this tournament where we went to play against other European opposition, and not of the highest quality, but I was playing against, players in Ajax. They used to be there were players like in the youth team of Ajax, and I was like, "You're playing for Ajax? Like, how are you playing for Ajax?" Because I knew that, obviously there's only this men's team of Ajax. So then the concept of club football got introduced to me. That okay, there are not schools in Europe and in these, Western countries that are dominating football, but there's a system of clubs. Um, and that's when I was like, okay, Europe jana hai. Like, I have to go. If I have the opportunity, I need to go to Europe, because obviously we're all watching Premier League, we're all watching La Liga, and that was always the thing that we wanted to do. Then played Delhi, and then this thing came up where I could go to France, and we can dive into those a little bit more in detail. But what I was trying to explain in all of this was that I realized that the moment I was going to Europe, I wasn't playing at a national field anymore, but I was trying to play at an international field. Because even at that time, when I had done the little research I did, which obviously I hadn't, because again, when you're younger, you're naive. It's also at that time where there was Facebook, but it wasn't social media like today, so you weren't as informed. So there was a little bit of like, just being um ignorant to the rest of the noise around you and just going for it. But knowing that Indian players had not made it in Europe, or very few had, if they had done so, and not at the highest level. So the thought process that you're functioning at, as well as for my boys that are here with the, at EBSM, they are not functioning from a point of view of they want to play professional football, period. They want to become professional football players in Europe, which is an even higher standard than what obviously we have back home. Not to disrespect becoming a professional in India, because that's not easy. I think obviously, as the average viewer watching Premier League in India, we think that Indian football and playing in the ISL or the I League or something is an easy, a cakewalk, but that's not the case. But it's like, for perspective, India has, in most states, we have the ISL first division, you have the I League, you have the second I League. You have three leagues, and they're all professional leagues. I mean, they're all, you know, and then depending on the state you're in, you may have, like in Mumbai, you have an elite league, you have a super league, and etc. etc. But all in all, you would say you probably have like six divisions, seven divisions in like the best states in India. If you go to other parts of the thing, there is nothing beyond the second I League. Third I League is also there, but basically what I'm trying to say is that in Germany, when like for example, the men's football, they have 12 to 13 divisions, which is, it just shows you, like, you're literally, just for that simple math, if you try to break it down, you're talking about four times the number of uh divisions that you have. And it's not even like there are 12 divisions where, each division has 20 teams. There are multiple 12th division, multiple 12th divisions in all of Germany, multiple 11th divisions, and they basically segregate themselves down the pyramid, and that's why they're so good. So again, to tie all of it down, the mentality was, I want to go and achieve something that no other Indian has achieved. And that was the mentality behind going to Europe. And yeah, eh, if I had to summarize overall what that mentality was, it was to be able to be like, okay, this is obviously a risk. It's more unlikely than likely. Becoming a professional football player in India is anyway unlikely. Becoming a professional player as an Indian in Europe is minute. But but if I'm getting this opportunity, then I'm gonna take it. And another factor that I would think is important also is that I was also lucky. Yeah? Like, I mean, if we all know of our privilege, etc., and not everybody can afford these kind of programs. So I felt that I was one of those uh, lucky cases where, again, I'd say goodwill kind of just does fall into place, where I had the opportunity to take that opportunity, but I wasn't somebody that was in that dream world. Okay, if I'm a star in for Shriram school, then I'm good enough to play in Europe. I always had, for some reason, an understanding of knowing um, that school football is really, really, like, down in the pyramid in terms of high quality football. um, I had, for some reason, some ruthlessness in the way that I used to go about my training schedule and the way that I would look at things. And I was very disciplined in the way that I went about things, very genuine about my passion towards it. And I think that's what my parents also saw, what Eric also saw. And um, and I had the privilege of being born in a family that can afford this opportunity that I did end up getting. And that's where it kind of, you know having the stamina to continue with the same attitude year after year, etc. And that's why I was like, okay, there are these multiple things that are lining up to be in this position, not everybody else gets. So if I'm getting it, I might as well go into it wholeheartedly rather than half-ass it and kind of be in the middle of nowhere, and then stick by that opportunity and be okay with it, whatever the consequences are. So yeah.
There's so much to uncover from what you've just said. Honestly, I think that's the kind of tangent that we needed, because you've got perspective on every single layer that goes into the world that you're in. So it's quite
Yeah.
impressive. But like I want to uncover several different things. The first thing I want to touch upon though is what you're doing, right? It's so unique. You kept focusing on how you wanted to be the only person who's done what you've done.
Yeah.
In your entire journey, right, from 15 or even younger for that matter, how have you mentally and physically been able to cultivate the discipline that you have to make sure that you just keep showing up? We all have shit days, every
Yeah.
single person. So, how have you ensured that you're showing up no matter what, knowing that you want to be the best at what you're doing?
Um, if I had to in pointers, I'd say one very, very clearly, or right off the back of my head, Eric sir, who I will definitely give a huge shout out to, at some point during this episode. My parents, so my dad came from he has a Fauji background, so he served the Indian Navy for 21 years. That was always a big thing for me, for us. So uh, a sense of, just being proud to be Indian was always a thing, and I felt that football ended up being somewhere like a vessel that I felt like, okay, this would be my vessel of kind of giving back to the country. So that was one thing. Um, and I think just the genetic uh being of that. Like my dad came from a middle class family. Again, obviously for Indian standards, we were privileged, but I wouldn't say, I feel like we probably have grown into the sphere we're in now. But it was a very, take things as it is and get on with it kind of a mentality without it being it was never, I mean, when I think about it, it was never a toxic or ignorant to feelings or emotions kind of place, but it was just more like, ठीक है यार, it is what it is. Now what's next? Like, it is always just the next thing. Um, so I think those three things quickly would be that, and I'd be happy to dive into them if you want as individual things. But yeah, I'd say those three things.
I no, I like that a lot, man. I think the two things you mentioned is how important it is to have a family that supports you, but then also Eric has been your mentor, right, since the very start.
Yeah.
So you can tell that you've had the kind of influences in your life that people are always seeking, and you've just had it right there available to you. So that's so interesting. I think another thing that you mentioned earlier is how you have to keep performing, right? And so as a football player, day in and day out, when you're showing up and you're in a performance-based industry, right? You don't perform, you're out. How are you dealing with that pressure of expectation every single day that you're going to train, that you're going to play a game, in conversations with people? How do you manage that pressure mentally?
Uh, yeah, I think that also. I think it's probably just like because of the fact that you're used to a certain routine. There's a way that you go about your day. I was reading and actually I was watching a podcast the other day. I don't know if you guys have you guys heard of a podcast called The Diary of a CEO?
Yeah.
Um, I can't remember. I think his name is Chris Williamson. I think I'm
Chris
not
Williamson,
sure.
yes.
Yeah. So
He
I
has
was
his own podcast
watching
also.
that.
I think it's More Than
Yeah, yeah, he
Wisdom.
does.
Yeah.
Yeah, he does. Yeah. Um, so there was this thing that he was talking about how it's I don't exactly know what term that he gave it, but he basically talked about your actions end up being your own evidence, like to yourself. So, I can make out above, and I mean you guys probably also have heard of this, and um but basically, just the fact that, okay, if I've set aside a certain way that I want to go about the next few days. This is what my routine is. If I decide to wake up at a certain time and go to sleep at a certain time and eat a few certain things, the moment that you do it, one thing after another, you have that confidence to back yourself the moment that you are in that scenario. The moment that you don't do it, I think then it catches up to you at some point or the other as well, because whatever you portray to everybody from the outside as well, when it comes down to crunch time, that kind of shows in itself. So I think my confidence comes in the fact that I feel like I'm doing the right things. Not to say that I'm perfect in that. It's not that every single day I wake up and I am excited about going about it. If I say that I'm also not immune to the fact that if I have an alarm at 6:30 that I'm up and about like a rocket. Like even I also hit the snooze button here and there. It's no, they're all humans. Finally, there's no superhumans even in professional football. But I would say the ability to say no to yourself, um, that muscle has been trained a lot more over time, and I think that's what makes it a lot easier to have that mentality to by the time that you end up getting down to actually performing, you have the ability to kind of take that. Also because you have no choice, man. तो क्या करेगा मतलब अगर तुम नहीं करोगे तो then somebody else will take your space. I remember it's still one thing that bothers me so much, but it is what it is. So, I was talking about the lows. I just signed with Anif, which is that third division club. So I had a break. I mean, I had my break, not a break. So we had I just signed, and I knew the moment that you move into a new division, it's not there's usually like a translation period. You have a period where you're learning how that league works, what are the things is it the intensity, is it the pace of the game, is it more technical, what is it like? Especially I was playing in Germany pehle, then I went to this Austrian division to try to see what the difference was. So the first 6 months, I was prepared mentally to be like, okay, this is a learning curve, and then I'm going to get more game time. And you know, you wait for the next break. So you have the summer break and then you have a winter break. And I had, we had the winter break. The first 6 months, I got some game time here and there. I featured a couple of times. Preseason, season off in the winter. Preseason began in the winter. So for anyone that is watching that doesn't know how football works, you have a season from summer to summer. So let's say that it starts, um, let's say the season before ended in May. That means you have June completely free. So you have about 2 to 3 weeks off in June, which is called off season. Then you have the season which begins from, let's say, mid-August onwards. So the July to mid-August period is called pre-season, which is like the period where once all the players have gone on holiday, they've gone home, they've eaten whatever they wanted, they've drank whatever they wanted, they've slept whenever they wanted. Now they've come back, they've put on a few kilos, they're not in the best like peak shape, and you come back and you regroup as a unit. And during these 6 weeks, they get the fat out of you, which you can imagine, which is the highest load during the course of the year, which is obviously a very intense and grueling period. That's also a period where the coach sees who is going to be my starting 11 that I'm going to be playing when the season begins. Let's say 15th of August. So from the 1st of July to the 15th of August, you have preseason games, you have hardcore training sessions, etc. to see who is going to be the starting 11 for for the first game of the week. And that trend ends up being, he ends up identifying 11 to 14, 15 players that he's like, okay, these are players that I can count on and work on. So, anyways, I explain all this to say is that we had that break and the winter, preseason happened. So the first 6 months was okay. Then I thought, okay, now the break has happened. Now I want to establish myself and get into the starting 11 because we had this break again in the winter. I played, after the first 1 or 2 weeks, I was doing well in training. I played the first 2, 3, 4 friendly matches and I played well. And then we had 1.5 weeks before the season began, and I was the guy that was the first pick in my position. And I thought that okay, things are going well. Obviously, again, not to get ahead of yourself, but I was thinking, okay, this is going to be the start of my getting constant game time with Anif. And then I got COVID. And COVID took me out for 2 weeks. And it's not so much that COVID took me out. The worst part is that the moment that you go, it's not that just that you go and your fitness might go away. It's the fact that you give your competition the opportunity to show themselves. And that guy showed himself and he did well. So when he has now started, because he's playing, he's done well. The coach also told me, listen, you were doing well, but you got you got unwell, and this guy came in and he's doing a job. I have no reason to take him out. Um, so I had that period that I saw for myself that the moment that you're out and you don't take your chance, it even if you take your chance, sometimes some other thing will take it away from you. So if you're not ready when you do get an opportunity, then yeah,
Yeah, no.
it's not gonna take too long until you're not in that sphere of professional football.
I think that's beautifully said, and I think that does apply to just opportunities in life in general. Like, a lot of people say, "Oh, he was lucky, he got that opportunity, lucky for this, lucky for that." Sometimes, like, there is some truth to that, but in a lot of cases, I feel like everyone gets the opportunities. Is it, were you ready to take advantage of it, right?
Yeah,
And I like what you said about, yeah,
it's a sorry to cut you off, but
no, no,
you're right, and it's also it's a thing of taking responsibility also now for yourself. Like it's obviously a very easy cop out to say something else, but the moment that you kind of take responsibility for yourself, you'll find that life will be a lot easier for you to also take on. Especially at least I can only speak about sport. I don't know about other industries, but um, it's very simple. You are a part of a squad of 20 and you need to make sure that you're there. And if you're not there, then it's something that you're doing wrong. And that's the simplest way to go about it. It could very well be that there are actually other factors, but uh, at least your own game is something you can control. So might
yeah.
as well just do that. But sorry, yeah, you were saying.
I'll just say I also like what you said about Chris Williamson because I think it's the same podcast or something, but it was Chris Williamson who helped me with the discipline stuff. What he said was when it comes to like relationships with other people, right? If other people are constantly disappoint, if someone is constantly disappointing you, then you're not going to have a very good relationship with them. You're not going to trust them. And it's the same thing with
Yeah,
yourself. If you set your mind to something and you don't do it, you're eroding your own
yeah,
trust. And so just doing little things, but setting your mind to just little things and doing them consistently, it helps you trust yourself and it builds that willpower to keep going. So
yeah,
no,
for sure,
I'm
man.
glad that you touched on that. There are a few things that you said that I want to dive a little deeper into. I don't think you said them in the way I'm interpreting, but I want to ask you anyway.
Sure.
So one of the things you said was earlier is you said the phrase view football as a career. So I
Hmm.
mean, of course, at some point you were just playing it for fun as a passion, and then at some point that switch flipped and it was a career for you now. Did that change your relationship with football? Did that change your passion about football? Did it change how you felt about it, how you interacted with it?
Yeah, definitely, man. I think when I was younger, I wouldn't say it was as strong as now, but um, I really find it hard to play football casually. Like, I find it hard to do that,
Understand. Yes.
He's not your
you
average
know,
pickup player.
No, I understand that.
like, and I feel bad sometimes. At the same time, it's also something like I don't like about it per se.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, it did because um, I think that the way that I had also spoken to Ericsson, so I was very lucky. I met Ericsson when I was 11. Like I had just played my nationals, and my parents had gotten in touch with Ericsson. Again, I have just like I was really lucky to be in a household where I got along with my parents very well, and they are just incredibly supportive, and I'm so thankful for them. And my mom, during the time that Baba was posted in, so I call my dad Baba, so he was posted in different parts of India at the time, and so mom, um, you know, um, took care of us and actually raised us in a lot of times herself, and that's something that even Baba gives mom a lot of credit to even to this day. So she was always very keen on looking out for opportunities, and that's why we met Ericsson. And obviously, again, you have school football, but if you want to do something a little bit more, you have to look for other avenues where you can train and play. So I met Ericsson when I was a lot younger, and his mentality was always a very. It sounds okay. So this may rub people the wrong way, but I understand it and I get with it. But he was like, he is okay with doing everything he wants, but average nahi banna. Basically, like his thing was like, okay, give your best, that's fine. But for him and himself, he was like, I don't want, I don't want to be associate for myself, as well as I don't want that mentality of being like, I'm okay with whatever it is. So he felt that, and this is before I had met him, where I realized, okay, I want to take things football seriously. But his mentality of the fact that if you're doing something, you have to do it. Of course, like everybody does, you do it to the best. That's true with all players. But his was like, okay, I want you to not just get into professional football. I want you to get into the national team and, you know, and create a mark for yourself beyond that. So, um, that was something that, you know, really caught me. And very quickly he told me, Vidu, no casual football anymore. You have to be careful about which football tournaments you're playing, even if you're playing with school, which was something that was also difficult because Amma is an educator, she's a teacher, so she was a teacher, now she's a principal at Pathways. And, you know, of course, you have a loyalty towards your school as well. But she understood where Ericsson was coming from because he wanted to just make sure, like, to protect me. Because most of the people that are playing casual football, they obviously don't want to, but just because of the fact that fitness levels aren't the same, you are maybe a step or two quicker than them, the wrong angle you get hit, you know, it's not worth it. Like, you know, it's just not worth it. So, um, that changed the way that I looked at football. I mean, I didn't street tournament. I mean, Rohan, I mean, with Shriram, like we had, man, I was like, so I had moved from Shriram Aravali to Shriram Mosri, and Aravali had the most wicked tournament for me in my eyes. Like, it was, like, I used to watch my brother play as my senior, and all the seniors, and I was like, I have to play fucking street tournament, man. Like, in front of all my, like, in front of the whole school, you're one of the top players. It'll be so much fun. This, like, he was like, no, street tournament. You want to play
That would
street tournament or
hurt,
you want to
man.
play professional football? Okay, sir, I want to play professional football. Okay, good. So then that's where it changed that, okay, I can't take football like as I have to make sure that I have that passion, and that was always there. I always enjoyed it, but the training became smarter. The relationship with the ball became more calculated. um, the things that I was doing were different. I wasn't, when I was hitting the gym, we weren't working like when I was younger, man. Like I, to this day, I'm so lucky. He had put me onto a particular trainer at the time. His name was Nasir. So, he just put me onto the right things. I used to do the most boring thing in the world, man. If I tell you, like, if you actually do it, if you like, I don't know, do you play football, Ribab, or are you just a fit guy, like born this way? Like,
No,
do you
so
also
honestly,
play?
football has been in the cards for me forever. I played
Okay,
competitively throughout my life.
okay.
Some people said like I remind them of Ronaldo, so
All
those
right,
days are
yeah.
behind me now. No, I don't play football at all. I've played competitive sport before, so I do understand a
Right,
lot of where you're coming from, but football was never
right,
one of them. No.
right. So, like, the most basic thing in the world,
Yeah.
Ericsson had told me to do 1,000 touches every day. And when I'm talking about 1,000 touches, I mean just with quality, passing the ball against a wall
Hmm.
1,000 times.
Wow.
And that was my technical training before, to make sure that you are accumulating. And I'd love to get into that also at some point, because basically, mathematically, you're always at a disadvantage to Europe. So, what do
Also,
you do to make up for the time that the other guys were training? So, let's say that you're an Indian player,
yeah.
right? I have played in school football. My first avenue of playing into is school. School you get into at the age of what, 6? Class one is
Oh, yeah,
usually six
around
years
that.
old,
Class
something
one
like
to
that.
six, yeah.
Yeah. So now uh, a lot of schools don't even have the provision that you have sub junior, like even
Yeah,
more than sub junior football, right? Okay.
yeah.
So let's say that you do have that provision. You have training twice in the week. Okay. In Europe, and I'm talking about the top countries that I'm looking to compete in at least, but most European countries, they have in each corner, each and every city. Let me speak for Germany. I can speak, but Germany has every single, like, small, not even a city, like every locality has its own football club. even if they are a 12th division club in their men's, they have a coach and they have a team for under sevens, nines, 11s, 13s, 15s, 17s, 19s, reserve squad, and then first team. So let's say you're the worst club in the world with the worst trainers in the world also. Okay? Because of the fact that here's a footballing culture over here, most people have a general idea of how to move, what are the basics, etc. That means a 6-year-old has at least 3 organized training sessions with a coach every week of their lives with a competitive match on the weekend. So if I'm comparing 1 week of me as an Indian player, I'm comparing in week one session to 3 sessions. Not that much of a difference. But simple interest, it is it takes over time, it will compound like crazy. 2 to 6, 3 to 9, 4 to 12, and that's where that gap gets created. So you need to find ways to make up for the time that even if you enter at the young age that we at that time also think of, as well as the boys that come to us now, even if they come to times that they're 12 years old, they're coming at a mathematical disadvantage, like from that get-go. So how do you make up for it? So things like the basics of just getting your touches in place. Technically, technique is not obviously doing step overs and flicks and stuff like that. It was just being clean on the ball and doing the right things at the right time. So that, those kind of things, like my whole view of football just changed. It was just like completely shook up. So I definitely say that my relationship with the game changed in the way that I was interacting with it and the way that the output that I wanted from it. When I was hitting the gym, I was hitting the gym much younger, and we were working on like body alignment, like spinal cord, doing like core workouts of like, a 4-point stance and like a rod at the back to make sure it's not falling. I was doing this when I was 12, 13, 14, 15. That saved my life. I don't have, touch wood, I've never had like crazy injuries, man. I had like stuff, black rolls that are like at homes now everywhere. We were releasing our muscles. Like my that trainer Nasser, he used to, before every training session, he used to release with his elbow our muscles before each and every session at that time when it wasn't known. You know what I mean? And because of that, I've never had an ankle, a knee, an alignment. I've never had those big injuries, and I think that was down to it. So the way that training and the interaction with the ball changed drastically, but it was very calculated. The only thing that didn't change that I would say that I'm happy with, and that's why it's been this way, because you can't fake it, is that I've been like, I've loved football even then, and I do even now. Like even now, I've been injured. Rohan knows about it. I'll talk to you about it also in a bit. But I've been injured for a while, and slowly and steadily, like it's still the most amazing feeling to just have a ball and an open football pitch and a goal in front of you to just lace one into the top corner. Just for yourself. That passion for the game has always been there, and I don't see it going. And even if it does go, I think I'll have enough stamina to see it out till I'm 35 or till the time the career ends at least.
I really hope you see it out till you're 35 because you're my retirement plan. So there's a few things that you said which well, firstly, no, let me take a step back. I need to tell you,
Mm.
your left foot is better than your right foot, in my opinion. So
I
you
was
should
looking
use
at
your
some
left
reels. Your strong foot is not your strong foot, bro.
you should use your left foot more to lace it in the top corners, in my opinion. But
All down to the same thing. I was told this a lot earlier. Like if you want to play in Europe, you have to be both, like you have to play with both feet.
dude,
So yeah.
no, that was easily one of the cleanest reels I've seen in a long time, bro. You're just lacing into the top corner with your left foot like it's nobody's business. That was quite incredible. But what I want to talk about is the privilege piece that you mentioned, right? Because
Yeah.
now at Eric Binney Sports Management, you're trying to bring in a lot more talent and hopefully follow in your footsteps. you spoke to the fact that you did grow up privileged. We all have, right? But now even privilege has its own layers. How supportive is the privilege that you're growing up in, and how much do they aid you into getting to where you are? Have there been any situations where you've spoken to people who don't come from the same backgrounds, and the fundamental struggle for them is how do they get past their own lives in their own homes to be able to do
Yeah,
what they want to do, which is be a professional footballer?
yeah, yeah, man, for sure. And again, that's why I've always had so much respect for Eric sir, because again, economy is always a very different sphere, and it's a reality of life that one has to accept. But it takes someone um very large-hearted to support people that are not maybe in the space to be able to support themselves over a longer period of time. Um, you know, without, again, because that's something for him to speak about, and I wouldn't think it's fair for me to share numbers exactly, but you can imagine staying in Europe is not an easy thing, and being a part of a program. Um, Especially we in Germany, it's a very strong economy, and there is economics that is involved in it. But there were players that were supported during that period. Um, Not for a year, but for 2, 3, 4, 5 sometimes. Obviously, COVID hit makes a huge difference to the way that things are now. But uh, yes, I definitely have seen that, and I still continue to see that. And football can still be pursued further on. That's why you need the initiative and you need the support of the government. You need the support of people that have beyond that capacity to be able to take on these kind of programs and identify these programs that are working with the right tools and with the right recipe for players to be sing, and have them be supported, even if it's something that requires a co-branding or requires that that their name is kind of also taken on and given that due, which nobody has an issue with. But you want to be able to give players of all sectors the opportunity to be able to compete. The only thing that I would say that we don't often realize is, see, we're a huge population, and even if you tap into, you know, 5% of our population who is keen on playing football, you're hitting the same population, if not more, than the countries that you're competing with. Now that doesn't mean that all of those players in that 5% are all football enthusiasts, but I am I'm confident enough to say that there is more than enough talent in the bracket that can afford these kind of programs to be able to come across to Europe at the right age. That's obviously a very important thing. Um, to come at the right age in a good program with the right, you know, things in place. Again, look, I'm heading this thing, so of course there's a reason why I believe in it. But I see what is happening around us, and um, it's just not the right path. But I'm sure that those players, if they are given the opportunity to be able to come to Europe when they're younger, those players would be enough to do our country proud, and like to create the superstars that we require to be able to point to and be like, okay, I want to be like that. Like, we wanted to become, every child in every gully in India right now looks up to becoming a cricketer and is willing to put down their fortunes into that because of the fact that they have multiple legends to point to over multiple periods of time to be like, okay, I want to become like that player. So you need an absolute superstar to be able to do that. That's what EBSM's thought process is. Because you're not only thinking about coming back and giving back to the nation, you should 100% do that also. But don't be good enough to compete at the best of the best for Indian standards. Be good enough to compete in Europe. And that will be a byproduct of that. If you can play in professional football in the top leagues in these top countries, of course you'll be able to come back to India and you'll do really well for your national team. And that's where that thought process would be. So yeah, I have met a lot of people that would not be able to afford something on an opportunity that's in Europe. But I'm 100% sure and convinced that the players that can is more than enough. We have more than enough talent in our country to compete in Europe. It just requires working smart, having people that are there on ground to be able to help you with that journey, not give up in a year. Football is not something that you take up for some time and say, okay, I'm not a star, so it's something that takes time. And yeah, once you start viewing professional football the way it is, that every boy, girl, grandmom, grandfather, dad, mom here know how professional football is. The moment that we get that, Indian players come across here, eyes open, they understand how the thing is. We have enough talent, man. We have more than enough talent.
I love that because like we've grown up sportsmen as well, not at a professional level, but you understand that there's a certain dichotomy in the way that we have grown up playing sport and the way that a gully boy is growing up playing sport, right? So, as
Yeah,
unfortunate as the dichotomy is, it exists in our country and it will persist no matter what. Uh, I wanna dive deeper into the relationship that you have had, particularly in your career, right? Set aside the fact that you were able to come to Europe and afford playing there. That's one element of it. But now, as you segue into your own independent career as a player in Europe, I feel like, and I follow the sport religiously, right? There's a huge misconception about money in the sport because the money that we see is in a first division, a second division in England. There's a lot of money being thrown there. You've gone from a 10th division in Germany to a third division in Austria. In that period, what has your relationship with money been like? Because you have to put food on the table, right? And in the 10th division, they aren't paying you to put food on your table. So, how are you as a football player navigating the money you're making, your relationship with money, and like pushing that envelope, knowing that there's multi-million dollar deals being made every hour in the higher
yeah.
divisions?
Yeah. So I mean, I think at the time, obviously, you don't view it like that as an asset. Obviously, you know that that's where you want to get to, but that cloud of how people are paid, like in those crazy clubs that everybody knows of, is like a thing that is known in the past for us already. So you're not really viewing it like that. Your sole focus is purely just to get from one division to the next. Um, of course, there's a lot of money that's been thrown out to the best thing, but again, you always need to have that kind of uh, ambition, but also humility to know where you're at and what your goals are supposed to be. For an Indian player, when you're playing in Europe, especially, so a perspective that we don't often think from ourselves is that there are about 150 to 160 countries in the world that are playing football that have national teams there. Some have leagues, some don't have leagues, but overall, you'd say approximately that. You aren't talking about now India again ranking and stuff like that, but I'd say okay, we're in around the 100 mark. So ranking wise, you are trying to compare and compete in a country like Germany, which is one of, like, I don't know, for decades you would say in the top 10 at least in the top 10, sometimes in the top 5. So you are not competing with some European country. You're competing with the creme of football. So the moment that you start comparing, like, why am I not earning like that? You're only going to set yourself up for disappointment. It's like, why do you go into a corporate job if you're not working at Apple? I mean, you still work, right? Like, you still have places to work where you get paid, where you do well, where you have a life that you build for yourself, but may not be the highest paying, you know, corporate firm that there is on the market. So uh, I think it was the same way for us as well, that like, it's not that you lower your standards in terms of like how much you are okay to being paid, but the money is something that comes a little, like, it's not your first thought, because you know that the money is a byproduct of the division you get to. Um, at the same time, when you enter 18, again, another huge misconceptions, you obviously hear about all of these crazy players like now Yamal that you watched in the Euros and stuff. He's 16. It's unbelievable that he's playing. But again, Yamal is like, it's insane what he's doing, man. He's not competing. He's not starting as a 16-year-old and competing there. He's standing out as a 16-year-old. That's basically like saying that's like that's like how a Messi or a Ronaldo would be, basically, that they weren't just players that were competing at this level, but they were players that were standing out. Like that's the same. I mean, I'm not saying that he's them, but what I'm trying to say is that basically he's giving you the output in today's time of what those players were doing. So it's unreal. So that is an anomaly to the general consensus of how football players are. You know that the average football player in Europe becomes professional when he's 24. That is the
Wow.
average player that turns pro in Europe. So it's a general misconception that players come in and that they will all earn a crazy amount of money. But the moment that you're in around this environment, you realize what reality is like. At the same time, those funds and those things that you're reading is also reality. It's not that it's only reserved for a certain class of people. That's the amazing thing about sport, right? You come in from nowhere. I mean, Sadio Mane, one of our, I mean, we're very proud to be. So we're associated with a French club called FC Metz. Metz is known for the fact that they, pick up raw talent and create these world stars out of them. Sadio Mane is one of them, who, played famously, obviously, for Liverpool, and then went to, now he's obviously playing in Saudi. But I mean, he was playing with Bayern, so incredible players. But again, he was a nobody earlier. So it's just that he was a part of a certain scouting system and he got recognized, and then he ended up earning what we are aspiring to earn towards. So it's not that it's not possible, but yeah, of course, there is a big difference in the finances that are there. But that doesn't mean that if you're not earning that, then you don't earn anything. It's not like nothing that's there. Each and every division, the higher you get, the more you get paid. Some of them initially it's just like a fixed sum. Some of them it's like pocket money. Some of them is a fixed sum plus bonuses. Some of them they give you bonuses not in terms of financials, but they they rent a house for you, or they rent an apartment for you, or a car for you, or something like that, depending on the status that you have in the club. But that's how the general economy of football clubs work. And that's how the pyramid also stays strong, so that players are incentivized to getting paid and going higher in the divisions. And that's how that, you go more and more above. There is, though, even in these huge countries, there is a huge difference in the gap in finances, even in the Premier League and, I think it's called League One there, or the Premiership. I'm not sure anymore because they keep changing the name of it. But there is a big difference, but it's all possible to get to. But yeah, I mean, it goes without saying, there's definitely a huge difference in that. But it's still it's like having a a normal job that you would have, except that that job is something that you're passionate about. And then that's a decision that you want to make for yourself, whether that's the thing that you went into, or you thought that you were coming into it to get into a Real Madrid and you didn't, and then that's, yeah, for you to decide where you want to take it from there.
Interesting. Mm, But like with all that considered, have you any time in your career been in a position where you felt that financially big and actually let me tell you why I asked this question. In your career, you can very quickly come to a standstill, right? It's a performance-based
Yeah,
industry
yeah.
again. Your career could come to a standstill at any point. So, has there ever been that fear in you where you've said, I don't know that I want this anymore? And have you ever felt maybe financially in a weaker position or beneath where you've said, maybe I should consider alternatives, maybe I should do something else?
Yeah, so I think that's why EBSM was also something that I wanted to do, because in general I always wanted to have a second revenue stream. So EBSM ended up being that thing for me, and also for a lot of professional athletes, I always felt that I don't want to be in a space where I am only playing football, because beyond a point, what are you going to do in your day, man? You have training in the morning and you have training in the evening. Like the rest of the day, what are you doing? Like you can obviously just like, while it away, and that's okay to do. But I feel like again, the mentality and the way that we go by that, you want to keep on going and doing something and rating yourself with it, then that's where, working EBSM, we always make sure that all of our boys are also like educated. If they aren't educated, then they're working somewhere else as well. So while they are playing, they also have other, avenues where they are earning something or the other. But yeah, man, 100%. Finally, like you said, we all had the privileges of what our parents gave us as a baseline. But finally, you need to make your own value in the market and in the world yourself. And nobody's gonna, pay you down unless you have a business that you're inheriting, that's in the bloodline or something like that. And even that, I would say you still find a need to earn the respect and, keep that business strong. So, there were definitely times uh, where I thought, man, like this is obviously not going the way that was planned. I thought by the time that I was, uh, you know, 18, 20, I'm going to be playing at least at, in a third division club, and, then from there see if I get into a second or first division club, because that's all you're naively like dreaming of. Um, and yeah, you definitely had times where financially you're not in the space where you feel comfortable with it, where you're not used to, you're used to a certain standard of living, um, and where you don't really feel that you are able to, because you're used to being able to provide for yourself and further. That's where you've been. That's the environment that you've been in. Um, and even now, for example, so I've, like I was telling Rohan earlier when I met him. So I've been injured now. This is my longest injury that I've had. And
What happened?
the moment that you are out of contract, there's no payment that's coming through football, and that is also reality of life as a player. That the moment that your services aren't needed anymore, you're kind of out of the window, and then you need to find other ways to fend for yourself. So that's where the mentality of, even while I was playing, having EBSM going and and working for me was something that helped me and kept me afloat. Also, again, German economy is unreal, man. I mean, it's amazing. You have amazing opportunities to get a job, to get other ways of making sure that you are, it's also a social country, so you have a lot of support that ends up happening. It wasn't something that I really required, just because of the fact, again, that I had EBSM, but the economy, that's a huge reason why we work in France and Germany, is because we work in countries that are like, European countries where the economy is stable, where there's no unsurety, of course, at least to some degree. Um, Mentality is such, and etc. etc. So, uh, I was lucky that I haven't had to really see very low lows, to be honest, when I'm talking about financially. Emotionally, yes, but financially, uh, I personally haven't had to really go through them so badly. I've had to do diverse things, different things, but um yeah, because of the fact that the economy is such, it gives you opportunities to be able to keep yourself and sustain for yourself and have a good quality of life, despite not being one of the highest in the pecking order when it comes to the general income levels. But there were definitely periods where I was on the leaner side of things, as well as where I couldn't really fend for a lot of things that I would have taken for granted that, my parents always gave me in the luxury towards. Um, at the same time, I also don't want to obviously paint the picture too as if we came from a rich family. But again, still being an upper middle class family, you have a lot of privileges um, that you possess and that you kind of enjoy. So yeah, that is a reality. That's something that one needs to keep in. That's also a reality that you need to also be okay with as a footballing career, that the moment that you are out of the sport, you have no income that will come towards it other than endorsements or something that will come with it. And that also only depends on if you have come up to a level where people want to take on your endorsement, like where they want you to be the face of something. Um, and how you position yourself, etc., etc. For me, I don't know why it never came naturally to me, so I never used even till today. Like a lot of my friends kind of tell me, dude, you're playing in Europe, why don't you, put more out there and of your stuff? But I was just never that guy. I'm being honest. I'm the kind of guy that I would need like I would need someone else to be documenting me. Like I'm not somebody that can record themselves doing it. um, I have a lot of respect for people that can do it. Um, but I just can't get myself to do it. But through EVSM and having to cover a lot of the other boys, funnily enough, that is something that I'm able to do very happily. And I guess that's one way of doing it. But yeah, that's a huge reality thing in the sphere of sports, that um, your capability, your body is your biggest asset. Your performance levels is your biggest asset. And the moment that you aren't able to keep yourself fit and able to give value to that club or to a team, um, you're of no help to them. And it's for you to kind of fend for yourself, which obviously doesn't put you in the most advantageous position there could be. So yeah.
Very interesting. One of the things you said was you never felt the strains financially, but you did emotionally. I want to
Yeah.
dig into that a little bit. Given your trajectory in football and your passion for it, and all the hardships that just come with sports in general, I'm sure football's broken your heart more than you can remember.
Yeah.
Um, what's that like, and how do you keep going with that? What were those emotional
Um,
roller coasters like?
yeah. So again, my brother, my family, um, Eric sir played a huge part in kind of keeping me afloat. Um, I can think of two really big standout things that happened for me. Um, so the first one was when I had again, it may not from the outside seem that big, but it was really big for me. So this is when I was playing in the seventh division at the time, in Germany, and I had played in the tenth, then I went up to the eighth, and I had moved to the seventh, so then I was looking for my next jump, and then I got this opportunity to go into this third division club in Austria. It's called SV Vogel, and obviously you can imagine it was this huge difference. You could see it in the small things, the training session, like the players that were training, they had their own, like, branded kits, and the stadium was bigger, and the players were fitter, and the coaches seemed more professional, and the whole setup seemed like, okay, this is what my idea of football, professional football is like, and I'm going into this thing. And I had this, have any of you guys had shin splints before?
Yeah.
Um, So if you haven't, it's basically when the two muscles, both inside and outside, they tighten up internally after repetition of any strain that you're giving it. And I was definitely not in the space to go and give a trial, but I was given this opportunity, so I had to go, and I couldn't cancel on it. So I went and gave this trial, and I'd taken a painkiller before it as well. Eric sir went with me, as well as one of my friends, Anant, who was one of the other Indian Academy boys from, can't remember exactly where he was from, but I think he's one of the southern boys. He came from the south, and he came to watch my training session, and so we started the session. I remember we started with like this passing drill. I was doing quite well. Then we went into this possession training, this thing, and it was also going quite well. I was feeling like my shin muscles were like every few minutes that it was ramping up the pain more and more and more. And the session was going fine, and I was happy with the way the things were going. And it really reached a high point, and then it stopped. And I was like, okay, I don't know what the fuck happened, but that's good. So then we went into, a break, basically finished with the possession drill. We went to take a break, and then we had sprints. Did the sprints, everything was fine, had some water, and then we went into the final phase of it, which is basically the typical way that a training schedule is, where you go into like a mini football game. And what I realized the moment that we started playing was that the pain had it gone. What happened is that the internal inflammation was so high that actually it got numb. So I started playing, and I was just always 2 steps off it every single time. I couldn't feel the ball. I couldn't run. Like I couldn't feel how I was running. I ended up losing the ball one thing after another. Whenever I wasn't in the game, when I got it, I lost the ball. I had one action where I, did a step over shot with my left foot and the keeper saved it, but it was a good action. And then I ended up injuring a player. And with that, injuring the player, we stopped the session because obviously, like, you have a trial boy that's come in and he's injured a player, and so he didn't want to take any more risk. Isko bhi, this guy will also he'll break someone. So it was like the most embarrassing moment, like for me, because you know, you need to also think everybody wants trials and everyone wants opportunities, but there's a big responsibility behind these things because there's a name that's behind it. If you are saying that, can you give me, and Eric Sir, again, what I am now is what Eric Sir was for me then. So the way that it works is that Eric Sir, EVSM is we are partners from India, and we obviously want to push our Indian boys. And we have the certain mentality that, why can't Indian players also play? And of course they can play. And I was a good player. I wasn't a bad player. I think I had maybe the possibility that I maybe could have got selected and maybe learned my ways above, like, with the years to go. So it was a long shout though, like to have a seventh division player get the opportunity to go in for a trial in third division as well. So DF, like the academies, German academy as well as EPS, I'm communicating with the club and getting in touch with them. What that does is you're not just holding a responsibility towards yourself, but also towards like other players in the future coming and giving trials well, because they're gonna say, okay, this is the player you played, sent last. Like, I don't think that it's gonna cut it. And yeah, I just remember it was I've been part of sessions where, maybe a few training sessions where I haven't been picked for something, but I had never felt so humiliated in the way that I performed, like, on the pitch. Till today, I'd say it's the worst. It's the worst feeling I ever had, like on the football pitch, and um, it was just like there was no conversation after it. I We stopped the session because this pain was just so excruciating, and it was just numb. I couldn't feel my feet. We stopped the session because of me injuring a player. I had a bad game. I just played so badly. We went into the dressing room. Nobody was talking to me. None of those players were speaking to me. Before that, they always ask you where you from, and saying, being nice to you, trying to integrate, make you feel comfortable. After the session, nobody's speaking to you, nobody's interacting with you. You're ashamed. I was ashamed to just look up, man. I was like ashamed to just look somebody in the eye, and went, showered, came out, saw the coach. No possibility of even asking selection, this thing. He just said good luck. And I just remember Eric sir being there and kind of just put his arm around me, and then we went into this thing, and he was sitting again, I was sitting piche. And just remember like crying for at least 15 or 20 minutes just straight. Like, I didn't say anything. I don't think he's obviously seen me go through disappointments, but I don't think he had ever seen me that disappointed because I knew that I'd blown at that time the biggest opportunity that I had been presented to me at the time. Um, so yeah, that was easily the worst day, not of my footballing career, I would say, but I would say the worst, the most intense feeling that I ever felt of sadness or like disappointment and anger on a football pitch. Um, yeah, then went on with that. Obviously, I had, the other Indian boys at the academy that helped me out to kind of pick me up. And, I mean, you obviously get on with it and you keep going, but that was something that really, really stung and stayed with me. And then the second time when the second season that I had with Anif, there was a coach that came in again, like I was saying earlier, finally, in retrospect, I just kind of take it on myself. But there was some internal politics that kind of led me to this new coach. So when I signed for Anif, there was a different coach. And the second season in Anif, that old coach got sacked and a new guy came in and he just didn't fancy me. And basically over the period of that last year, he just like completely neglected me. And what that does is it doesn't write off that year for you, but it writes off the year and the next. Because what that does is the moment that you're looking to go into another club, they look to see, okay, what are your stats, what are your numbers, which player, what caliber of player, this thing. So you need to justify yourself to be like, okay, I'm not actually that bad a player compared to what the stats are showing. Um, but like the stats were just nothing, man. I barely got any game time. He completely neglected me, only put me on when all opportunities or all else failed to play my position. And you feel horrible about yourself. You feel, a lot of your self-worth since the time that you're younger is also that you're known as the football player. And so the moment that that is not working and going the way that you're hoping for it to go, um, and that is such a huge part of my life. I mean, that's why I came to Germany, man. Like, I left not to try to make a sob story, but yeah, like, the truth is that you leave your background to achieve this particular goal of this thing. So no matter what, no matter how integrated you get here, no matter what life you build here for yourself, the moment that bread and butter is not going well, um it's just a horrible feeling. I used to drive uh, from where I'm staying to that place. It used to be a 1 hour 15-minute drive. Just we are in around 85 to 90 kilometers one way, and to just always go and do that to uh, you know finally every single time not be picked on the. I mean, you'd be in the squad sometimes you weren't, and then when you're in the squad, then you sent for warm up, and then you're not put on. It chips away at you one thing after another. And I was already 25, 26. I was kind of experienced, like to be able to be like, dude, like, come on, man, I'm not like an 18-year-old, 19-year-old, 20-year-old that's like learning the ropes. But I was someone that I knew how to play my position. I knew I could value add, but he just, no matter what my performances in training were, he just wouldn't you know give me that opportunity or like, give me that chance. Again, finally at the end of it, I it is on me only. I should have performed even better in training, and when I did get the chance to play, I should have, I don't know, just kind of absolutely set the pitch on fire. But it didn't happen, and the byproduct of that was the fact that I really just felt very undervalued and really just like overall really shit about myself, man. Like, I mean, it really um got at me to the point that I would really say that again, emotionally it would have been the worst low of my life. So in terms of a period, I'd say that was the worst period that I've had in my life. I stopped listening to music, which was we were talking about earlier. Um, stopped listening to music. After a while, I didn't. When I think about it later, I also like put on a bit of weight. I wasn't hitting the gym with the same intensity. Um, I wasn't eating right. I wasn't doing the things that I should have been doing. Uh, and again, I'll always go back to saying that I should have done these things even better. But I think it was like, the first 6 months, I think I was doing the right things. And then after a while, I just saw that nothing was coming back. And that stamina, they always talk about, football stamina, like not running wise stamina, but the stamina of your motivation, that had a dry, like it had a drought. So yeah, that really sucked a lot out of me, and it is a
How did
very
you
emotional thing.
how did you get out of that drought? Because those can be what some of the hardest things to do.
Yeah. Um, I don't know, man. I obviously I joined this other club. I came back to playing in Germany, started getting more game time. Um, After that, so like right now, even during this conversation is probably the hardest period of my footballing career that we're having this conversation. Um, but it was just kind of coming back to the basics, coming back to game time. I'm a firm believer that no matter what division you play, the moment that you're playing games, that's the only way that you can really show yourself and be of relevance. So I don't falter or look down on players that, have had, like I was saying, you're going to have highs, you're going to have lows. Sometimes you need to pivot to another place, steady your base again, and then you can take two steps, further. I've seen it with a lot of players happen in the past. I've seen a lot of players move, like, again, now that we've established, like, Bayern Munich is like not just a first division club in Germany, it's like the best club in Germany. I know under 19 players from Bayern Munich that have gone into their first season of men's into a seventh division club. Like, the drop off is unreal, and after playing 1 year in the seventh division, I've seen them stop. And I'm not talking about out of 10 of these players, you'd see like 6, 7 of them happen. So the hardest thing is not getting to a good level, it's getting to a level and maintaining yourself there and having the ability to basically keep that stamina of continuing that motivation. That's the hardest thing, and that's what makes it a career and a moment. You may have a moment, the moment that things are going well for you and you're happy with it. It's obviously a lot easier to keep that going. But the moment that it gets hard, that's when you need to stop thinking so much and just do, just get into like action mode. Like, okay, you don't like doing it, but it doesn't matter. You just have to do it. नहीं करेगा तो you're not gonna get a club, and that's that. And yeah, that's how I got out of it. I just did the basics again. I got myself to not thinking much about it, moved to a new club, new environment, new start, um, got my confidence of being on the pitch again, um, set up certain things to be like, okay, this is what your day is going to be like. These are the training sessions you want to do. These days you do this. These these days you work on the things, identified what the weaknesses were, used the time that I had off to strengthen the weak points in it, and focused. They always say, like, just trust the process. So basically, focused on the process of just readying yourself for when you do end up getting onto the pitch. And that's the only thing you can do, man. Just dive into the preparation and not overthink it. That's sometimes just the hardest thing to do. Just like doing is just the hardest thing to do, but that's where getting that muscle of just disciplining yourself to be like, okay, you can't do certain things and you have to do certain things, whether you like it or not. You don't want to go to the gym, just fucking go to the gym, man. Just go if you need to. You need to go to do your touches on the pitch. Just go and do it. Just drive, change your clothes, get in the car, drive, go to the pitch. It's sometimes just so simple and really unromantic, and but yeah, falling back into the basics and routine was the thing that has got me out of it. And I'm still raring to go. I'm not signed to a club right now. I could have signed in the summer, but one thing is being injury free, and one thing is being fit. So, being ready for competition fit, and that's a big difference. And I've got to a stage where I'm injury free, but now I need to get to a point where I'm uh you know match fit, and I want to enter as like the best version of myself. So I see this as like, okay, this is an opportunity presented to me. I didn't, I was injured, but I never, during the injury is the only time that you can work only physically on yourself. Earlier, like in football, you can't do it. If I can't hit the gym like 100% because I need to perform in training, because I need to impress the coach to play on the weekend. But now, okay, I'm injured. It's shit, but at least it gives me the chance then to get like my upper body, my lower body, strength wise, to a level that I couldn't have done when I was doing it earlier. So there's always a positive. It's basically a trick that you always have to trick yourself with saying, okay, this is a good thing. So yeah.
What what is still driving you though to play football and to keep going?
Uh, I don't, I'm more now, most likely nearing the, I'm closer to the end than the start. That's a big one. I went on 28 this year. I think the average. So I always see like, whenever an 18-year-old comes, I always tell them that basically you're an infant. Like if you look at the average player, they stop at 32. But if you now with today's sports science, most likely to play till 35, 36. That means you have your whole life to play now. So you're gonna literally redo your life now. So I'm 28 now. That means I have another, according to my calculation, 7, 8 years of playing. Um, I think my prime years are now from 28 to 32. Maybe 30 would be more realistic, but 28 to 30, especially for my position. I want to get the best out of it. There's also an ego part of it, definitely, which is that okay, I still want to play for India. I still want to, if I was the first to play in the third, I still want to make that a second division player. Um, I just want to get the best out of me to be like, okay, when I do look back, that I'm like, okay, the best player that I could have been, I reached and achieved what I could achieve, and that's what the short term goal is. So right now, the first short term goal is um getting back to fitness and getting back to a physical and athletic capacity that is of a level I didn't have before. And the long-term goal is to represent India and play professional football in Europe again. And that's what's driving me, man. That's the long-term thing, to just get to tick box those two things, basically. Um, the next, man, I mean, if I always honestly just think that if a Ronaldo can still, I mean, it's crazy and it sounds so cheesy, but like it's true. The guy has won Ballon d'Or after Ballon d'Or. The only thing that he hasn't won is the World Cup. But even like a Messi now, he's finished it. But like if those guys at that time were able to find the motivation to keep going when they had won everything, like I have not won close to anything, man. I haven't signed in a third division club in the top three, in the top five countries in the world. I haven't signed for a third division club in Germany as yet. It's unlikely now, but can I sign for a second division club in Austria? Yeah, it's possible. It's still there. It's still something that's it's not beyond the realm of possibility. So, um, yeah, the moment that is there, and it's easy numbers, and that was also a big reason why I wanted to move from India, because if you're playing in the ISL, I'm not saying it's easy to get there, but ISL would be something like the fifth division in Germany approximately, um, or the fourth, third division in Austria. So if you can, if I reach that cap, in my head, no matter what I think, I have reached the first division. Like I've reached what the highest I can get to. But here I'm like, it may be the same level, but I'm still like, oh, it's only third division, so I still have another. So that number still kind of takes you go like to be like, okay, you want to get to more and higher, um and then yeah, the smarter way is also go to other countries, play in the first division there, because third division, and again Austria's, maybe it's not in the top 10, top 5, but Austria is like top 20. So maybe you can, if you're playing in a third division club in Austria, maybe you can go to another European country and play in the second or first division, club in that European country. So those are ways of going about it. But yeah, that hunger to just make that number, smaller and closer to the highest part of the pyramid is the motivation.
Glad to hear you're injury free, and I hope you get back on the pitch soon.
Thanks,
Um,
man.
I'm glad you brought up the ISL stuff because you did mention earlier that you want to get back to why don't you just come back to India? And so let's actually get into that right now. Why don't you come back to India and play football here? There.
Yeah. Similar to what I was saying earlier, man. I think that I'm in a position that is a very lucky position that very few people have been able to be in. I think I was a part of a program that, I'd be happy to debate against anyone in the country. I mean, I don't even come from a place of arrogance, but I, I, I just know for a fact that there is no program for Indian players better than EBSM, just because of the fact that for sport is a long-term thought process and a way in commitment, and that's how it goes about things. Um, I was a part of that program. Have been able to establish myself in Europe. I had the opportunity through my parents, and I was not a bad player and was able to get myself to, stay at a certain level. So I'm hovering in around a level that is like, it's like the brink of, reaching the next. And I would not be, I respect it, but I would not be happy with, like, now that I'm coming to the best years of my footballing career, I would rather give it to the pursuit of creating. I really don't even try to say it as a like to make a cheesy line of it, but really I'd rather give it to creating history as an Indian player rather than coming back to the ISL and being one of many players. Even if that doesn't work out, I'd still be okay with it, but I'd rather gamble on that because I don't think that there are many players in my position uh, who have had that opportunity. And I think that it would just be a disservice to that opportunity as well as for myself. I wouldn't be able to deal with that regret. I'll very easily be able to deal with the regret of the fact that I didn't play in ISL. That's totally okay for me. Like I'm fine to say that okay, I didn't play in the Indian leagues professionally. I know for a fact I would have been paid more. I would have uh, gathered and garnished more following. Um, but now, and you guys will see it also, give it even maybe a year or two now, but 2 or 3 main conversations that you will see, because people are getting fed up, especially Indian fans towards the Indian national team. Everybody is harping about the fact that why aren't you seeing Indian players in Europe? Because you are not enabling them to go and play in Europe. You're not giving them the opportunity to be able to do that. Now, I am sitting ahead of the curve with this opportunity, and not as an 18-year-old that's got into it now, but like having years of it in the past. Is it worth then coming back home and playing? For me, it's not. For me, it's not worth that. Uh, that would be a regret. I think that would be a thing that I would really be able to be like, okay, yeah, that would be a regret because I wouldn't know what that would have been like. Um, Also, again, unfortunately, there are very few ISL clubs that uh, have the right facilities, that pay the players on time, um, that where football is like it's football focused first. You know, without trying to disrespect the league, I think that there's very few opportunities that I would be happy also to. Uh, I mean, I'd be very happy to play in the ISL, obviously, but I wouldn't be uh, excited enough after having lived in Germany, been a part of the footballing culture here, seen what professional football is like, the nutrition, the air, the organization. I would find it hard, I think, to do that. What I wouldn't find hard though is playing for India, because that's something that, I will always dream of and want, and I think I will achieve. But ISL is not something that I view as to be like, okay, that is the thing that I have to do. That doesn't rule out that opportunity and that possibility. I'd still love it. Maybe when I'm older, if that opportunity still presents itself, because you need to be able to bring value no matter what league you play. Um, but yeah, man, it's the opportunity cost. Either you give up the opportunity to move past or continue playing in the level that you're playing at, or you play in the ISL and give your best years to those, and have maybe a few lovely years in your career with more, um, I don't know, more of the things that you would as a kid have, chased in terms of like more of a fame lens and a financial lens. But it's one of the two, and I'd rather give that opportunity to this path, because if I get it right, then I will be in a bracket of players that very few are, and that's the ego trip that I'm on.
Big ambition, I love it.
Honestly, like
Yeah.
I think it's fair. Like the thing that you're doing, you have earned the ego trip that you're on. So
Thanks, man.
honestly, take it and
Thank
keep
you.
it. And it almost feels like you've had these conversations with yourself and with other people so much, right? And I know for a fact I have asked you the ISL question at least 10 times in conversation, many times before. So what I
Yeah.
like the most is that you're self-aware, you know the ambition, and you know that that door will open for you if you want that door to open for you. Uh, I wanna make a bit of a hard pivot here in terms of your life as a whole, right? We've touched a lot upon football, but of course, you have a great family. You're in a lovely relationship there, but then you also have your own routine. You're so disciplined. How have you cultivated the balance to give your girlfriend enough time, to give your family enough time, your friends enough time? What does that look like for you?
I haven't. I
Simply
haven't,
put.
man. I'm still struggling with it. I think I will continue to struggle with it, and I think that that's something that I will always find difficult to do. I'm someone that doesn't like to be on their phone much.
Mm-hmm.
And when I'm in something, then like मैं घुस जाता हूँ उसमें. मतलब I find it hard. I have that tunnel vision, which is not always a good thing. Um, I'm not good at calling my friends often. I'm not good at calling home often enough. Um, I find it hard to do that. When you're playing, it's even harder. Right now, it's an easier period because of the fact that I just have EBSM to work on and making sure that I am, working on myself. But the evenings are free. Usually, in when you're in season, they're not. And the higher you play, the less free days you get. So you end up having a Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday or Sunday you'll have your game. And uh, even those free days are not free days, because if you're playing on a Sunday, you can't just do whatever you want on a Saturday. And if you played on a Saturday, you still need to do some recovery on a Sunday. Um, and Monday very quickly comes. Like very small things. Like if I wanna have um chicken curry, like I can't have that on a Sunday night, because I will feel heavy on Monday morning. Um, I don't think that I'll ever strike that balance. I can get better at it where I set certain things in the week where I'll have to schedule it. I'm that guy, I have to schedule things because it doesn't come naturally to me. And being someone that really values relationships, um, I don't think that I've also done justice, to be honest, even like to talking or explaining really how much it's helped to have mom, dad, and Siddhant, like how they've helped me and Yuli as well as Eric sir. But I have to, because of the fact that if I'm in work, then I'm constantly thinking about that. When I'm at the gym, then I'm at the gym. When I'm going for training, then I'm going for training, and it doesn't take much. Especially when I used to go to Anna, if I had an hour and 15 minutes always to just call, but I would use it to listen to a podcast that's more relevant to my training session, and that's not always the best way of going about it. So um, I haven't reached that as yet, but I do try. Sometimes you need a nudge from people around you, and that's where again I've noticed. I like my so my mom is an extrovert. She has a lot of people that she's in touch with, and she has an amazing gift to be able to do that. My dad is somebody that is has few friends that he likes to concentrate on, and I'm more of that kind of a person. But I like to be that person that my mom is. So I don't like that about myself and the way that I'm going about it. But what I found really endearing and that I love is that I've seen it from my friends, man. Like my friends are, it's incredible because football is really demanding throughout the year. Um, you can't really ever like put your feet up. If anything, you can do it maybe for like a week or two. Really, if you think about it. Um, Even when I come back home to India, if I'm at home for 4 weeks, like after the first week and a half, I will start feeling bad about how I'm feeling, as well as guilt will set in, and the fact that that when other players come back into preseason, you need to be like, if you don't do it, then you are gonna come in as like everyone's gonna be unfit, but you're gonna be the most unfit. So you have to start setting in gym sessions. You have to start setting in jogging. Even in Delhi's beautiful AQI, you need to find ways to do that. You need to go to swim in the winter where Delhi is not equipped for that. You know, you need to find ways around it, and my friends have to deal with that. Like I can't say that I'm staying home late. I mean, Rohan's sisters, Rohan knows about this. I've had a fight with his sister only about it, where, because I find it so hard to keep myself disciplined during that time because it's so hard, man. Like you're home, you're enjoying yourself, you're happy with your friends and stuff that you want to eat and do whatever you want to sing. But shit, okay, I have to go for the gym session in the morning, and I hate going to the gym session when I'm feeling like lethargic and I haven't slept enough. So you need to leave if I'm meeting them in the evening. Now all my friends are working, so they come back only in the evening. So they're only free to meet in the evening. And from their point of view, they're also right. They're like, yeah, you barely come, like now that you're here, just like come on, spend some time with us. But if I don't do that, then it's like you always feel like you're cheating yourself somewhere.
Yeah.
So um, I yeah. So what I was trying to get to is that I think they've accepted that about me, and the way that football takes that out of me. I think they've given me the trust to be like, okay, if today he's chosen to let loose, then he has chosen to let loose, and he decides that if he needs to leave, then he leaves. If he needs to do X, Y, Z, then he does that. And if he's the person that doesn't call throughout the year, then that's him. But it's not going to affect the friendship, and that's what I appreciate the most. I don't find it. I often speak to Yuli about it, where I always think about and like plan gestures and find ways to convey that to my friends. And it's never been hard for me to express myself. But it's just that um, when you have such limited time, when you see them throughout the year, it's very hard during that time to speak, you know, fully and completely and wholeheartedly. You're just like occupied in like catching up and, speaking about stupid things and just spending time with them. But I want to find a way to, again, action doing something or some gestures to kind of like show them and explain to them how much that helps and how much they help me and how much I appreciate the fact that they've accepted it as is. Because all of us are now in that age where we're all trying to build a life and everybody is in their own spiral. But um, because of the person that I am and the nature of work, I find it hard to really show that and give that time to them. So um, yeah, to answer your question, dude, I haven't really found that balance, and people around me are just accommodating because they have some affection towards me, and I'm trying to justify that and by getting a little bit better, I guess, from my end.
Do you think to be at the competitive level that you are at and to be successful at that level, um, it's possible to have that balance, or do you need that extremism to be able to compete? Because otherwise, someone else could just take your spot, right?
Uh, if you ask me without trying to think too much, I'd say yes. Like you can't, you don't have that balance. Just hold on, let me try to get some light in. Is this better?
It's
Yeah.
all
At
good,
least to some degree.
yeah.
Um, I think to some degree, like no, I think I may be wrong in it, but I think that if you wanna have extraordinary results, then you need to do things that other people aren't doing. That might be a play again just to confirm my bias, but um, I think that you need to be like sometimes I've had a conversation also with another friend of mine about this, Varun. Sometimes I just like I wanna throw my phone away. Like I just sometimes want to, like yeah. I mean seriously, like I sometimes I just wanna like go to Ladakh and I literally have these thoughts, Lou. I'm not even joking. And I'm just like, I don't want to talk to anyone. I don't want to, because I just, when you everybody has a potential in themselves, and you as a football player or as an athlete, you always want to unlock that smallest percentage that you can get out of yourself. And sometimes you just think like, if I wasn't in X place and I wouldn't be having to meet this person, even if you want to or don't want to meet them, and you might not eat this particular thing that is at the end of the day harming you, and you are the person that is bearing the brunt of it. It's a very egoistical way of looking at it, but uh, I'd be lying if I'd say that I don't have those thoughts. So I don't think that you can have that, and I think that's also a big reason why I don't know if I could play in India, because people will, out of their love for you, will visit you and will, they're like, कोई बात नहीं, ये कर ले, ये खा ले, ये this. It's like, no man, like I can't do it, and it's hard enough to say no to it, and I don't want to have to deal with that as well. Um, but I really truly think that you can't, you can have a balance, and everybody finds a balance for themselves. There are people that don't take things so seriously as I do, and there are people that don't require to do it. There are people that are more naturally gifted than I am. Um, and that's what I was when I was in India. Like for Indian standards, I was more naturally gifted. But if I come to Europe, then I'm not. So, certain players need to sacrifice more, some less. I think you probably have heard, and there was a player called Eden Hazard. Apparently, he used to just train like the way that he wanted, man. I can't think of that. I just cannot think about like having McDonald's and like tomorrow like training and playing, but the guy used to turn up at the best league in the world and he used to kill. So it is true that talent plays a part and this thing plays a part, but you need to identify what your strengths and weaknesses are, and you have to go by what that is. And if you say, okay, I have X amount of talent, and if I do this, then this is the player that I will become, and if I do this, then this is the player that I won't become. Um, that's that balance that you need to find for yourself. So, for me, I realized that I am a good player that had a decent talent pool, was guided by the right people, uh, had the right mentality, the right support system, the right discipline to do things, and that's the only way that I'll get to success in football. If I go purely by the way that my whim is and what my feel is, it won't be a career. It'll again be a moment which I don't want for myself.
Yeah. I think one of the themes you've been very, very firm on this entire episode is just your support system and the people around you. And you said
Yeah,
even in our Germany experience 2 weeks ago,
yeah,
you looked at me and you said, dude, when you have the right people around you, it doesn't matter balance because they will help you strike the balance as
yeah,
well. So I think that's just the situation that you're in, where you've also created a circle around you that understands the work that you put in and day out, right? And for what you're doing, you need those kind of people to know what you're doing and the work you're putting in. I think as we,
yeah, yeah. You need that. You need that. They have to be people that are on board. I always view it as like I have 2 or 3 groups, some family friends, some just friends from school, and those people are the people that I'm very happy to invest my time into, and um that I would want to see is like, they've been a part of my life for the longest time, and I would want them to be in my life for the rest of my life as well. Um, but I picked out those people pretty early, as well as they, without ever thinking about it, kind of naively kind of went along with it for me as well. And yeah, I just think that that's just something that I don't take for granted. And it's something that whether they realized it or didn't realize it, or they were just like, okay, ठीक है, that's how that is. That's the dynamic that we have, and it couldn't have worked any other way. I wouldn't have been able to do it because even if I tried now to do like speak more often, text more often, stuff like that, nahi hota. Beyond the point, I just won't be able to do it.
teaches you how to
Yeah,
prioritize and deprioritize really well, right? Which
yeah,
you have to do.
yeah.
I actually,
One sec,
as
one sec, one
we
sec, one sec, one sec. Before you start, let me just put the light on. So this just some, yeah.
as
Sorry.
we
Little late for that, huh? A little late. A little bit.
as we get closer to the end here, I have two questions I wanted to leave the audience with. One, if you could handpick two things that football has taught you, what would they be? And
Mhm.
the second is, if you could just leave anyone in their 20s or younger listening to this with one piece of advice, what's it gonna be?
Um, Two things. Just give me some time. I'll have to actually think about it. One thing comes to mind, which is very simple, which is discipline. Um, okay. I'd say uh, first thing is uh, definitely discipline. It's taught me to be a little firm with myself, to be like, if you need to get some things done, then you just need to do it. Um, don't overthink it, and uh, set a, a set a certain like checklist for yourself, or things like, I mean, it depends on how systematic you are, but being able to apply yourself is the hardest skill that one can think of. Sometimes it really is a skill that people, I almost, that I've heard people talk about like it being a talent. Being disciplined is like a talent, and um it definitely has taught me that, as well as what it's also taught me like that thing of whether good or bad, ठीक है, and what's next. Like it's a solution finding uh, mindset that football has taught me. So I'd say discipline is definitely that thing, and two would be responsibility. Like just to um, not make up excuses, and figuring out that whatever your circumstances is on you. I had many doors that shut that could have been given to me, but I definitely had opportunities that I could have taken on better, and that's down to me. And I think the faster that you are open to that idea that you need to be responsible for your own self and your own outcomes. Um, all doers and all people that are doing well for themselves have been people that find solutions when when that situation was called upon. So I think having a discipline as well as having that self of responsibility, those are two things that would help. Um, and honestly, that ties down a lot into what I would tell anyone that's, I mean, I'm also honestly in my 20s, and I'm also in a lot of ways still figuring my stuff out. So it's always hard to, like, kind of give advice to the next. But um, I really think that, you know, make it a priority to force yourself to stick by the promises that you've set for yourself. Like, I think that's a huge takeaway that I would give to people, because it's an extremely empowering thing. I think it's something that is purely internal and purely in the brain. uh, Even if you are somebody that doesn't always get it right, that still doesn't mean that you stop it. If you mess up one day, look for the next day and get back on track on that. But um, just get to a place where you are cutting out things or doing the things that you set out for yourself, because that will give you immense confidence in your ability. That will also bring you closer to your own goals. That will give you a perspective also on what's important. um Funnily enough, for me, I found that it'll also bring you and cut out people that are actually good for you. um and Believe in your ability, man. Like, nobody can be you. I can't be Rohan, I can't be Ribhav. At the same time, you two can't be me. We're all individuals. We're all our USPs is our individuality. So you need to view yourself, psychoanalyze yourself, view yourself, and like do a SWOT analysis of your strengths and weaknesses, and capitalize on that. But think it through. Give your time to like figuring yourself out. Both, for me in my industry, it has a lot to do with my body and stuff like that. But also just figuring out yourself. No matter which industry you are, who are you really? I think that's a question that a lot of people find very difficult to figure out for themselves. But the faster you find clarity in that, I think a lot of things will you know kind of lay itself out, and kind of the pieces will come together. I guess those are the two things that I would say.
Dude.
That's
It's always
beautifully
weird to
said.
say, man, for like younger player people, because like you're 27 yourself, you're also just figuring it out. But yeah, those two things really helped me. Yeah,
That was very well said. Thank you so much, brother. It's been an
thanks, man.
absolute pleasure.
Yeah, no, that was honestly the
Thank you.
only thing we needed to hear to end this on the note that we did. I am so privileged to have been on a field with you. I will never forget the one through ball you played where you cracked open a four-man defense line and my clinical finishing. Thank you very much.
Of course, of course.
I'll never forget that. But no, I've had the privilege of being with you on a field, and we've had the privilege of speaking to you for like 2.5 hours right now. This is incredible. So thank you for your time.
Thanks,
This
man.
has been amazing. It's been amazing.
Yeah, I mean, you know me, man. I love talking anyway, so it's fine. You've done me a favor. I was like, "Huh, it's
We'll
fine.
pull you
Just
in for a round
sit
two,
this
man. Don't
guy,
worry.
sit this guy down, let him fucking talk, and that's that." But no, I appreciate it, man. I really generally love podcasts for just how the format is, and I think that you can only really deep dive through these kind of like conversations. So um, I was so happy when Rohan told me this, because you probably would have seen it in my reaction as well as in Yuli's reaction, because we've spoken about podcasts. We both listen to it so often, and I think it's something that um, is a huge opportunity. That's why I'm so excited for you guys. And um, I was telling Rohan the same thing. You guys have your, I mean, own USPs. Like, you guys know where you come from. In our country, you have access to people. You have the ability to socialize and connect, and like actually like very articulately put your like thoughts together. So those are things that right off the bat are playing for you. So I'm just really happy that you guys are doing this, and genuinely from the bottom of my heart, anyone that does is something that I'll always support. So I just keep going, go past whatever that that tough wave that is there. Finally, you're in the industry. You guys will know best. You guys will also learn better than any other outlooker, even myself. And take it from there. And I'm sure it'll go really really well. And I'm excited for it.
Thank you, thank you.
We're gonna cry the rest of
We're
the
gonna,
day.
yeah,
Just
that'll
promote
work.
yourself.
No, thank you so much. That actually means a
All
lot.
right, man. See you guys.
Take care, Vedant. Thanks so much for coming.
Bye.
We'll have you for
See
round
you,
two.
bro.